she said. I don't need your rent. Like it was nothing. But her eyes lingered too long for it to be nothing. It was the first time I realized how close she stood when she said it. The late sun came through the kitchen window of her house, laying stripes of gold across her bare arms. She leaned on the counter, coffee cup in hand, and gave me that small, knowing smile she always did when I didn't know where to look. I'd only meant to drop off the envelope, the 1 month I'd actually been on time. You should keep it, I said, holding it out anyway. I owe you for the garage space. She didn't move, just looked at me, then at the envelope, then back again. Her lipstick was slightly smudged at the corner, not enough to be careless, just human. Do you always insist on paying people who tell you not to? She asked. There was a softness to her voice that didn't match the line. It wasn't teasing exactly, more like she wanted to see what I'd do with it. I shrugged. I was raised that way. That must have been exhausting. She took a sip of coffee, eyes still on me over the rim. Her name was Clara. She moved into the house next door 6 months ago, the kind of house with too much space and too little noise. Everyone in the neighborhood whispered about her. The widow with the Mercedes, the one who never came to block parties, the one who always wore perfume that stayed in the air after she left. To me, she was just the woman who'd let me store my tools in her garage when my landlord raised the rent. But standing in her kitchen now, with the hum of the fridge, the faint citrus scent on her wrist, the slow way she tilted her head when I spoke, it didn't feel like that anymore. She finally took the envelope, brushed her fingers against mine without meaning to. Or maybe she meant to. Hard to tell with her. Fine, she said, slipping it onto the counter. I'll take it, but you'll have to come by for coffee sometimes. I don't like uneven trades. Coffee's fair, I said, though my voice caught halfway through. Good. She smiled, a small, quiet curve of her lips. Then it's a deal. She turned away, rinsing her cup in the sink. The sound of running water filled the silence. I watched the way her shoulders moved, how she hesitated just before turning the faucet off, like she could feel my eyes on her, but didn't want to break whatever had started forming between us. I wanted to say something about her garden, her laugh, the way the sunlight caught the fine lines near her eyes, but nothing felt right. Every word that came to mind sounded too obvious, too young. Instead, I just stood there, waiting for her to turn around. When she finally did, there was something different in her expression. Not softer, not colder, just aware. You should go, she said quietly, before I make you stay. For a second, I thought she was joking, but her voice didn't have the rhythm of a joke. I nodded. Okay. She walked me to the door, close enough that I could feel the warmth off her body. The air smelled like coffee and perfume and something faintly electric between us, like static right before lightning. I stepped outside. The evening air hit cool against my skin. She leaned against the doorframe, crossed her arms, and gave that same small smile. Don't forget the coffee, she said. I won't. Then she winked, slow, deliberate, and before I could think of what to do with that, the door opened wider behind her. A man's voice came from inside. Clara? Who's that? And just like that, the air between us changed. The man's voice from inside the house, deep, casual, familiar, froze everything. Clara didn't turn. She just said, quietly, It's fine. I'll be there in a minute. Then she looked at me again, the faintest apology flickering behind her eyes. I nodded, stepping back toward my side of the yard. Next time, she said. And that was it. For 2 days, I didn't see her. I told myself I didn't care, but every time I passed her fence I slowed down without meaning to. The sound of her wind chimes carried across the yards. I caught myself waiting for it, like it meant something. When I finally did see her again, it was evening. She was out front, pruning roses with a glass of white wine balanced on the porch rail. Your rent money's still on my counter, she said without looking up. I thought you said you'd keep it. I thought you'd come get it. Her tone was light, but her shoulders stayed tight as she clipped another stem. I could see the pale curve of her neck where her hair had fallen forward. I stepped closer. Was that your husband the other night? She stopped pruning. No, a pause. He's not around anymore. The air held that space between us, too much and not enough all at once. I didn't ask more. The neighborhood stories said he died 2 years ago. A car accident, maybe. Something sudden. She finally looked up. And you? Girlfriend? Someone who minds you hanging around old widows. Old? I smiled. You don't seem old. That got the smallest laugh out of her. That's not an answer. No one's serious, I said. Didn't last. She wanted me to be something I'm not. And what are you? I don't know yet. She looked at me for a long time, like she could see the answer before I could. Then she set down the shears. Help me with this one, she said, nodding toward a stubborn rose stem. I stepped close enough to smell the faint citrus and wine on her breath. She guided my hand, fingers brushing mine, slow, deliberate. Careful, she murmured. They bite. I don't know if she meant the thorns. We stood there like that, too near, not touching enough, until the streetlights flickered on. She finally stepped back, brushing her hands together. You're good at following directions. I try. Don't. Her voice was soft. Sometimes it's better not to. The words hung there, heavy but quiet. She picked up her wine, swirled it once, and took a sip. You can come by tomorrow if you want. I'll make coffee. Or something stronger. Her eyes caught mine for half a second longer than polite. Coffee's fine, I said, but she didn't move. For a moment, it felt like we were both waiting for the other to break, to reach, to step forward, to do something we'd regret. Instead, she just smiled, small and steady. Good night, Daniel. She'd never said my name before, and that, somehow, felt like more than a touch. The next afternoon, the rain came hard and sudden. Fat drops against tin gutters, wind pushing through the trees. Clara stood at her kitchen window when I got there, sleeves rolled up, watching the storm like it was something personal. You walked over in that, she said, half smiling, half scolding. Didn't think it'd get this bad. She handed me a towel, her fingers brushing mine. Quick, but not quick enough to miss. The room smelled like rain and coffee and something faintly floral, like her perfume had soaked into the air. You could have waited, she said. Didn't want the coffee to get cold. She laughed, shaking her head. You're impossible. We sat at her counter again, the same spot where she'd first told me she didn't need my rent. The sound of the rain filled the silence between our words. She poured the coffee, careful, steady. You ever get tired of people assuming things about you? All the time, I said. You? Constantly. She stared into her cup. They think because I have this house, and that car, and no husband, I must be. She stopped herself. It doesn't matter. It matters to you. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine. A beat too long. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because you mean them. The rain hit harder outside, loud against the glass. Neither of us moved. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a message lighting up the screen. Evelyn calling. She glanced at it, then flipped it face down. My sister. She worries when she's bored. The tension slipped back in, quiet and sharp. You can get that? I said. I don't want to. She stepped closer, leaning on the counter beside me. I could feel the warmth of her shoulder through the space between us. Her voice dropped, softer, almost lost under the rain. You remind me of him sometimes. Your husband? No. She looked at me again, eyes steady. The person I was before him. For a second, neither of us breathed. Her hand was resting near mine, close enough that a small move would close the distance. I could see the pulse in her throat, the tiny tremor in her fingers. I started to say her name, Clara, but the sound of a car pulling into her driveway cut through the moment. She turned toward the window. Damn, that's Evelyn. The doorbell rang before we could move. Her eyes flicked to mine, panic, amusement, guilt all tangled together. Go, she whispered, pushing me gently toward the hallway that led to the back door. I hesitated. She put her hand on my chest, firm. Now. The touch stayed there, her palm warm through my shirt, longer than it should have. I left through the back, just as the front door opened. From the porch I heard her sister's voice, cheerful, unaware. Inside, Clara's laugh sounded too bright to be real. I waited outside in the rain, hidden by the hedges, until I heard the laughter fade and the door shut again. Then, through the window, I saw her leaning against the counter, hand still pressed where she'd touched me, eyes closed. And for the first time, I knew she was just as lost in it as I was. The storm had passed, but the air still carried that damp heaviness, the kind that sticks to your skin and slows your breath. Clara texted that night. You left your jacket. I knew I hadn't. When I walked over, her lights were low, music playing soft, something old and slow. She opened the door barefoot, wearing one of those loose shirts that looked like it was meant for someone else's shoulders. You didn't have to come now, she said. It's late. You said I left my jacket. Her mouth curved, faintly. Maybe I wanted an excuse. The words hung there, heavier than they should have been. Inside, the house felt smaller than before, or maybe just warmer. She poured wine, set a glass in front of me, then leaned against the counter, watching. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said quietly. "I'm not looking at you like anything." "Yes, you are." Her voice was steady, but her fingers kept moving, tracing the rim of her glass, brushing hair behind her ear, touching things that didn't need touching. I stepped closer, close enough to see the freckles on her shoulder, the small scar near her collarbone. "Clara," I said, "why did you really ask me here?" She breathed in slow, almost a sigh. "Because it's lonely when the house gets quiet. Because you make it less quiet." Her eyes flicked up, and for a moment, the age between us disappeared. I could smell her perfume, something soft and clean, feel the heat from her skin through the inch of air that still separated us. "I don't want to be something you regret," I said. Her laugh came low, almost bitter. "You think I don't already have regrets?" I reached up before I could stop myself, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. She didn't pull back. Her breath caught. Just once. Then she looked up at me, all that guarded calm slipping. "This isn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "It already is." Her hand came up to my chest again, like before, but this time she didn't push. Her thumb traced the fabric there, slow circles that made my heartbeat feel too loud in the room. "People will talk," she said. "Let them." "You don't mean that." I didn't answer. The song changed, softer, closer to silence than music. She exhaled, and I felt it against my neck. "Daniel." That one word, drawn out, almost a warning, almost a plea, broke whatever distance we'd been holding. Her hand slipped behind my neck, fingers trembling. I leaned in before I could think, before I could stop. Her lips parted, barely, and then a sharp knock hit the front door. We froze. She stepped back, breath shaking. Through the window, headlights flashed across the wall. Clara looked at me, eyes wide. "Don't move." Then she went to the door. And just before she opened it, she turned her head slightly and whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "I was going to." Morning light came harsh through her kitchen blinds. The rain was gone, but the air still felt heavy, the kind that sticks after something almost happened. Clara didn't text that night, or the next. On the third morning, she showed up at my door. No makeup, hair pulled into a loose knot, eyes a little red, like she hadn't slept much. She held my jacket in her hands, the one I never left behind. "You should have this," she said. "You made that up," I answered. "I know." Her voice cracked on the second word. I stepped aside, letting her in. She didn't move right away, just stood there, gripping the fabric like she needed it to keep still. "I shouldn't have done that," she said finally. "What part?" Her breath caught. "All of it." I waited. She didn't look at me. Then she said, almost whispering, "Evelyn saw us. That night. Through the window." My stomach dropped. "She said something?" Clara nodded, slow. "She called this morning. Said people talk. Said I'm slipping again." She leaned against the wall, shoulders tense, head tilted back like she was holding herself together by force. "I told her it was nothing," she said. "That I imagined it." "And did you?" She looked at me then, sharp, tired, something breaking loose behind her eyes. "Don't make me lie twice in one day." The silence that followed felt dangerous. She pushed off the wall, brushing past me. Her arm grazed mine. Just a second of skin on skin, enough to make my chest tighten. "I don't want to hurt you," she said. "You already did." That stopped her. She turned, jaw trembling just slightly. "I'm not who you think I am, Daniel." "Then tell me who you are." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "You remind me of when I used to be brave." I can't decide if that's mercy or punishment. I stepped closer, but she didn't move. Her fingers twisted in the edge of her sleeve, restless. "When he died," she said, "I thought I'd forgotten how to want anything. Then you showed up, fixing things, laughing too loud, looking at me like I wasn't finished yet." She shook her head, and that scared me more than anything. My hand lifted, not touching her, just hovering, inches from her cheek. "You don't have to be scared." "I already am," she said, voice shaking now. And then she did something she hadn't before. She reached out first. Her hand brushed my wrist, light, hesitant, but it stayed there. It wasn't a kiss or an apology, just contact. Real, trembling, alive. "I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter," she whispered. "But if I let it happen, it doesn't stop here." "Then don't stop it." Her eyes searched mine, 1,000 things unspoken between us. She stepped back, breath unsteady. Tomorrow. Come by tomorrow. If I don't answer, it means I've decided to stop running. And before I could ask what she meant, she turned and left, leaving my jacket on the counter. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt final, but the warmth of her touch stayed like a mark I couldn't wash off. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, wind, cars, creaks, felt like her voice. By morning, I'd already decided I was going. Her curtains were drawn when I got there. The air smelled like rain again, faint but coming. I stood at her door longer than I should have before knocking. When she opened it, her eyes looked different, softer, but worn, like she'd been fighting herself for hours and hadn't won. "You came," she said. "You said if you didn't answer, it meant I changed my mind." Her voice trembled on the word mind. She stepped aside. I walked in. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of music from the radio, something instrumental, slow. On the table, my jacket still lay where she'd left it. "I don't know how to do this," she said finally. "Then don't think. Just talk to me." She shook her head. "Talking's what got us here." She took a breath, steadying herself. "I've spent years being careful. Careful not to need anyone. Not to want anything that could break me again. And then you show up, with your questions, your hands always fixing things, your way of looking at me like I'm still worth the trouble." Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to be around that." I stepped closer. "You don't have to know." Her eyes closed for half a second, like she was bracing for impact. When she opened them, I was close enough to see the faint flecks of green in her irises, the fine lines that deepened when she almost smiled. "Daniel," she whispered, "this is wrong." I nodded. "Then why does it feel right?" She laughed once, breathless, broken. "Because we're human." My hand lifted, hesitating, then brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't move away. "You're trembling," I said. "So are you." Her hand came up, fingers grazing the side of my neck. Every nerve in me lit up, waiting. "I've been trying not to want this," she said. "Not to want you. And now, I'm too tired to lie anymore." That was all it took. We didn't move fast, just closer, like gravity had been patient long enough. Her breath met mine halfway, her forehead resting against me, her voice barely audible. "This is the part I'll regret," she said. I whispered back, "Then let it be worth it." And then, no hesitation, no storm, no interruption, she closed the last inch between us. The kiss wasn't perfect. It wasn't practiced. It was real, uneven, shaking, full of every held-back word we'd carried for weeks. When it broke, she stayed there, her hands still against my chest, her head bowed, breath catching. "This doesn't fix anything," she said. "No," I answered, "but it's the truth." Her eyes lifted to mine. "Then let's not pretend anymore." For the first time, she smiled, not guarded, not polite, just honest. And in that moment, I knew she'd stopped running, and so had I. The next morning came slow, sunlight spilling across her living room like it had forgotten the night before. Clara was sitting by the window, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of coffee in her hands. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of life outside. Cars, birds, someone mowing a lawn down the street. Ordinary sounds. And yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should say good morning or goodbye. She looked up, eyes still heavy from the kind of sleep that comes after too much thinking. "You're still here," she said. "Yeah," I said. "Didn't want to leave?" "Good," she whispered. The word landed soft but sure, the kind that didn't need explaining. I walked over, sat down across from her. The space between us didn't feel like something to cross anymore. It felt like something shared. She slid the coffee mug toward me. I took it. The rim was still warm from her lips. "You scared me," she said after a while. How easily I started to care. I was scared too. Of me. Of what it would mean if I didn't walk away. She smiled, faintly. "And yet here you are." I guess I stopped running too. Outside, the sky was that washed-out blue that only happens after a storm, like the world had decided to start over. She leaned back in her chair, studying me like she was memorizing something. "You'll still get people talking," she said. "The widow next door and the boy who should have known better." I laughed under my breath. "Let them talk. They don't know us." Her hand reached across the table, slow and certain. When her fingers brushed mine, I didn't hesitate this time. I turned my hand over and laced our fingers together. She exhaled, a long, quiet release. And something in her face softened, like she'd finally put something heavy down. Do you ever think about what happens next? I asked. She nodded. All the time. But maybe for once, we don't have to plan it. Maybe we just see where it goes. I didn't say anything. I just leaned forward, close enough to kiss her forehead. A small, quiet thing, but it felt like a promise. She rested her head against my shoulder, the morning light catching the silver in her hair. My hand found hers again, and we sat like that. Not hiding, not pretending, just being. No perfect ending. No grand declarations. Just two people who'd stopped being afraid of wanting something real. The world outside kept moving, but inside that room, time slowed. Warm, steady, human. After a while, she said softly, "You make it easy to feel alive again." And I answered, "You make it hard not to." She smiled into my shoulder, eyes closed, and for the first time, we didn't need to say anything else. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?